Thank you so much, everyone. It's Valentine's Day, but that is not stopping us from talking about the election 2023. Channels Television is keeping our eyes on the radar. We're following what is happening. The CBN governor insists February 10 deadline will stand. Well, we'll get into the matter as things are really looking very interesting in the state of the race into the last 11 days of the election. The 2023 verdict begins right now. And your top stories this hour. Governor Yinston Wike of Rivers State insists the integrity governor's potency is still active and they are not dead and will shock many Nigerians. The governor of CBN, Godwin Emefiele, insists on the February 10 deadline for the Naira note swap. And a court's ruling in Abakaliki reportedly disbands the Southeast security outfit Ebuba Agu over issues of human rights violation. It's lovely to have you join us on this very day for the 2023 verdict live on Channels Television. A touch of red on my tie tonight, a show of the mood across the country and across the world. It's Valentine's Day. Welcome to the program, everyone. But one thing that we're not taking our eyes off is the countdown. 10 days, 12 hours, 57 minutes and 35 seconds at this very moment to the election of February 25th, 2023. Nigerians, hope that you're preparing yourself, getting up for the election. Your PVC, you need to get it ready. Everywhere you go, carry it along. If you know that you might lose it, keep it somewhere and ensure that you keep it safe for the Saturday, February 25th, 2023, when you'll be able to vote. Don't forget, no PVC, no voting. You need to keep it safe. And just know that it's just 10 days away before Nigerians get to decide on who becomes the next president of Nigeria. So much to talk about tonight, everyone. Nigerians are looking forward to the day, and we are right here keeping tabs of the major stories for you. Who do you think will win the election? I know you've been making those permutations. You've been looking at the crystal ball, and some clerics are already looking into the future, saying this is a likely person that will be the Nigeria's next president. It's very confusing for a lot of people who have been monitoring and following the election of Nigeria over the last few decades. Things are really looking confusing because it's now very difficult to call. Even the politicians and candidates are not also certain about how these will pan out. Tonight, we'll be dissecting the issues. Let me tell you, the north of Nigeria plays a major role politically. Where the vote goes in the north, well, that's sometimes how the election pan out. Tonight, I'll be speaking with one of the leaders of the Northern Elders Forum, and we'll be getting reactions on what is really happening. Is there a Northern Bloc vote? Well, we'll be dissecting those issues for you. Plus, what is happening in the Southeast at this point where there is a court ruling saying Ebuba Agu should go. We'll be looking at the security implication and, of course, the election security in Nigeria. So much to talk about. Stick around with me, everyone. First and foremost, let me keep you up to speed with what is happening across the country in your world of politics and election. It's election news updates right now.
The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, is insisting that the February 10 deadline for the validity of old Naira notes still stands. He was speaking at a meeting with members of the diplomatic corps. The governor of the Apex Bank explains that there is no need to shift the February 10, 2023 deadline. The development comes as part of the executive order of the Supreme Court, which restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline pending the hearing of the matter on February 15. A forum of governorship candidates of the African Action Congress (AAC) has announced the withdrawal of their support for the party's presidential candidate, who doubles as the party's national chairman, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. Led by the AAC, the governorship candidate for Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Iboro Otu, the group premised their decision on what they described as the divide and rule tactics of the party's national chairman.
We believe that Nigerians have other options that can lead us to where we want to be. And our choice of presidential candidate, we will be announcing it before the end of the week.
Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike says a shocker awaits those who think that a group of 5 governors of the People's Democratic Party, otherwise called the G5, are no longer influential and united. Governor Wike says their less engagement in public speaking does not mean that the group is no longer active. He said the political season has gone beyond the period of speech-making to a period of action-taking, and that the February 25 election will prove their worth in the nation's politics. The new Nigeria People's Party House of Representative candidate for Aniocha Oshimili in Delta State, Mr. Anthony Oche, is urging voters in the constituency to vote for responsive, credible leaders who have the love of their people in the upcoming general elections. Addressing his supporters in Oshimili, Mr. Oche notes that the 2023 polls provides the people a great opportunity to enthrone quality leadership that will deliver a better future for all. And in Adamawa State, over 3,000 members of the All Progressives Congress in Yola North local government area of the state have defected to the People's Democratic Party and have declared their support for the presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, and the second-term ambition of Governor Umaru Fintiri. The spokesperson of the DCMPs of the group, Mr. Buhari Yahuza, says their support for the governor is as a result of the governor's laudable achievements in the state. The wife of the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mrs. Titi Abubakar, has charged women across Nigeria to vote for the PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, in the February 25 presidential elections as they stand to benefit 60% appointment if elected president. Mrs. Abubakar, who was speaking at the stakeholders meeting with women across the state in Calabar, the Cross River State capital, promised to ensure that women enjoy the dividends of democracy if her husband is given the opportunity to serve the nation. With less than 2 weeks to the 2023 general elections, the women's wing of the Christian Association of Nigeria are asking women in the country to defend their votes and shun all forms of vote buying. Speaking at a town hall meeting organized by the body in Abuja, the president of Wobican, Mrs. Victoria Ihesiulo, explains that no less than 400,000 women have been mobilized for the elections.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right on the program. Don't forget, this program is very interactive, and we're following some of your responses as you're sending them in, so keep them coming. Our conversations right here. We need to know what you think about those issues that are raised. So Twitter us on these handles you can see on your screen. Hashtag 2023 verdict, or send an email 2023 verdict at channelstv.com. Or through this election, that is the email you will be sending us messages through, and we will get them on as much as we think that those are relevant to our conversation. So the race is not getting any slower, everyone. It's so intense, and so much is happening that could swing the trajectory of this race. So let's now check the temperature of things right now. This is the state of the race right now. President Muhammadu Buhari says he's confident that the APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu will emerge victorious on the 25th of February presidential elections. President Buhari, during the APC presidential mega campaign rally at the Dan IM Stadium in Owerri, the Imo State capital in the southeast region of the country, says he's asking the people to come out en masse during the forthcoming polls and vote the All Progressives Congress, the APC, and its presidential candidate, were the national chairman of the party, Abdullahi Adamu, the Imo State Governor Hope Uzodinma, the Governor of Lagos State, Ebonyi, the Deputy Director General of the APC presidential campaign, Adams Oshomina, and other party leaders were in Owerri earlier today for the rally. And the presidential candidate of the PDP, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, continued his campaign also. And he was also in the southeast region of the country. He was in Enugu, where his entourage were with him, conversing for votes, seeking support of the people of the state to vote for him in the 25th presidential election. Mr. Atiku assures the people of the state that his administration will tackle insecurity, poverty, and other issues bedeviling the region if they vote for Atiku as next president. And it was some kind of homecoming for the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, as he arrived in Nnewi in Anambra State. In continuation of his campaigns, Mr. Obi visited the palace of the Igwe of Nnewi, His Royal Majesty Igwe Kenneth Orizo, before proceeding to the campaign venues. There you have it. That is the state of the race, and that gets us talking tonight. Let's get to it. And part of our conversation will be the decision, or, well, the body language of the Central Bank of Nigeria. If that is anything to go by, Mr. Godwin Emefiele seems not to be backing down on the deadline for the validity of the swap of the old Naira note. He says that the deadline still stands. He was speaking today at a meeting with members of the diplomatic corps. The governor of the Apex Bank explains that there is no need to shift the February 10 deadline. Well, this is coming despite the ex-parte order from the Apex Court, the Supreme Court, which restrained the federal government from implementing the February 10 deadline pending the hearing on the matter on the 15th of February, which is tomorrow, when we'll hear the Supreme Court will be able to entertain arguments from both parties. More states have since joined that suit. Now, you see the politicians and the different political parties, those ones who have been able to show you tonight, the Labour Party, the PDP, the APC, they've gone round. Interestingly, the three major political parties we showed you tonight were in the Southeast region. The one was in Imo, the other one was in Anambra, and the PDP was in Enugu State. All of them campaigning and canvassing for votes across the country. But one thing is very paramount. There are 17 states in the southern region of the country. There are 19 states in the northern region of the country. Sometimes they say, where the North go, politically speaking, the nation goes, because if you look at the voting figures, the North seems to have more. They have more states. They have more votes. Usually, when you see the disparity in the kind of candidates and where they emerge from, there seems to be a lot to determine who becomes president. For the first time in a long time, it's difficult to determine who the next president will be. You've been hearing from Afenifere, Pandef, and different ethnic groups on their decision and where they are going tonight. Let's hear from the Northern Elders Forum. I'm being joined by the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum, Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed. He joins me live here in our election studio. Thank you so much, and it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too, and thank you for inviting me to your beautiful brand new studio. I've
Thank
never
you
been
so
here.
much. I tell people that it's more beautiful to the eyes than even what the cameras can pick. These cameras are not doing the very good job of what the eyes can see. Thank you so much, Dr. Hakeem Mohammed, for joining us tonight. Where does the Northern Elders Forum stand at this hour?
We stand where the northern people stand. We're looking very critically at all the candidates, 3 or 4 of them. We're still in the process of assessing who we think deserves the support of the North. People are looking up to us, a lot of them, for guidance, for advice. And we're assuming we are taking this very seriously. We don't want to rush. We haven't endorsed anybody. We haven't said this is where the North will go. We don't need to be pushed or stampeded. We're comfortable where we are. Let the candidates continue to canvass and ask for our votes. We're looking more critically than the rest of Nigeria. And we need to do this because we have a huge responsibility. As you said in your intro, the North has a huge number of votes. And substantially, they will go to where groups like ours advise people to go. So it's not a small responsibility.
How potent is still the voice of the Northern Elders Forum? Are you still able to swing things? Do the people still listen to you, politically speaking, on the way to vote?
If I tell you that, the answer, would you believe me or would you believe Nasiru?
I know you do. You're a very good friend.
Because I know, he's my younger brother, actually. People listen to us. We've never let them down. We've never assumed a position that was inconsistent with Northern interests, ever. This time last year, remember, we stood firm and said the rest 17 state governors who were pointing fingers and shouting at us and saying, no Northerner should stand for elections. If he does, nobody should vote for him. We were the only group that stood up and said, no, you can't do that. We will produce a candidate if political parties choose to field the candidate. As we speak, 5 out of the 18 candidates are Northerners. We have defended Northern interests, and people know. They know we do it with responsibility. When you say elders, it means a lot. You don't give your name yourself the title. What you do, how you do it, and consistently people measure you. That's what elders are. So people listen to us. You ask me if people listen to us. We know they listen to us. Not all of them. Not all of them.
You know the reason why I'm asking?
No.
There is a polarity, and there is now a diffused political beliefs and sense of independence of the Nigerian people recently. If you look at it, people seem to have that sense of independence on their mind to choose whoever. And we've seen that people have also despised the voices of those who have called the voice of reason, I mean, which said, we are going here, but in recent time, you've seen that has not elsewhere. And that's the reason why I'm asking that question, whether or not the metropolitan nature of how most of our cities are right now is reflective of the political intrigues or the scenario playing out in the northern region of the country.
There's no way you can get unanimity across everywhere. There's always going to be plurality. People, well, you're bound to find groups and individuals and communities who say, no, this is not the way we go. And we're very proud of that in the North. We've never really, the nearest we came to being almost unanimous was in 2015. Otherwise, we voted for different candidates, for different parties, for Southerners as well. Intense competition between Northerners and Southerners, and we voted for Southerners, and they became presidents. So we are aware of that. It's not a bad thing. I'm not sure that demography and geography have entirely changed the way people think. Northerners are not sheep. I can speak for Northerners. They are not sheep. They are not the kind of people that you say, go in that direction, and they go. And yet, still, people judge their politics on the basis of their experiences. And in the last 8 to 10 years, we've had a lot of experiences that have bound us together, maybe tighter than we've ever been. We've had insecurity. We know who's caused. We know what we've suffered. Every inch of the North is unsafe. Our economy has crumbled. Our infrastructure has crumbled. This decade hasn't been good for the North. And what it did is, and maybe for good for the North, is that it has created a stronger political bond of the people.
Is the Northern, we've perhaps not gotten your position in the Northern Elders Forum as to the debate on where power should rotate to, and whether or not the Northern Elders see the way some PDP chieftains see the rotation of things. Perhaps the school of thought that power, as far as some PDP chieftains are concerned, is not in the North, the presidency. That the last time they left it off in their party was in the South. Is that the way the Northern Elders Forum see the equation?
No, not at all. Our position has always been consistent. This rotation thing is a PDP gimmick, which they never respected. The power belongs to where voters decide it goes to. And it goes to those, the candidate who gets the most votes. And that is as simple as that. We have votes in the North. We have candidates. So you can't use a region now or entirely and say this is where it is and therefore this is where it must go. We've noticed that in some parts of the southern part of the country, people are still harping on this thing. It must come to the South. It must come to the South. And we thought the language about must come, we're over with it. It's you don't win election by just saying it must be happening.
If they are not said must, would you have reasoned with those who wanted power to go to the South?
Joe, listen. This nation needs a leader who can hold this country, unite it and resecure it. It's not their language. We're looking at the value of the people. We're looking at the caliber of people who are asking us for trust. We're not looking at language, and we're not impressed, and we're not intimidated. We will not vote for anybody just simply because people use the kind of language that creates panic and fear. It must be our candidate, it must be. All that does is that it demarcates the candidate. It doesn't do candidates any good. For him to have people using language and body language and shouting and demanding and insisting that we've gone past that. Whether it goes north or south is academic. It goes to where the votes are. And the politicians know this. They are miles ahead of everybody. That's why they are going all over the country asking for votes. They know it's not a southern thing. They know it's not a northern thing. It's a voter thing.
Well, what about the core of our Constitution that talks about the major values of the issues of spread, of issues of togetherness, of issues of fairness? So the question is, where then lies the reasoning of fairness? If a Fulani President Buhari would have spent 8 years, and those who are clamoring for power to shift to the South think that it's just only fair for the power to return to the South. Does that come as fairness to say, after a President Buhari's 8 years, it's just only fair? Does that come as fair, or is still academic from your point of view?
There are many starting points. Fairness, if you use the concept of fairness, you must first go back to the Constitution. We all have to subscribe to the Constitution. And then there are other values you can add on to the Constitution. The Constitution says whoever becomes president should have secured 25% of the votes in 24% of the states. For a county like Nigeria, that's a fantastic design. It creates a presidency which would have benefited from votes from all over the country.
But even at that, if you look at the political map, Doc, it's always has been that we've had a Goodluck Jonathan that won in mostly South
Yes.
And we had a Buhari in 2015 that had won mostly northern region of the country. Well, the constitution has savaged the situation because we would have had a president who emerged in only a few states based on larger number of votes. That makes a lot of sense. But even at that, we still see the political map sharply divided by ethnic or regional lines.
Sure. And that's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. It shouldn't be. It's certainly not at this time. When we're looking for someone who would go the other direction.
A pan-candidate, a pan-Nigerian candidate.
A Nigerian who would not have the stamp of ethnicity or regionalism or faith.
Can we still have that in 2023?
I think that's why we haven't said anything. People keep asking, why are you quiet? Why hasn't NEF identified a candidate? And the reason is simple. We supported a candidate in 2015. No, it wasn't based on faith or where he came from, but we thought he was a good man and he was going to fix this country. He didn't. He let it down. Now we said, okay, fine. We paid a huge price for Buhari, the North, and the whole country, but especially the North. So we decided this time we are going to look for better quality. And this time we're going to be more critical. We're going to scrutinize candidates more. If all they have, unfortunately for them, they have very boisterous, very noisy ethnic champions who says, you must take our candidate or the consequences, or you pay for the consequences. We're not impressed. If you bring religion and say, I have a faith issue in my candidate, we're not impressed. The North is Christian and Muslim. And you can't impress us with faith. And you cannot intimidate us by saying, if you don't take our candidate, then the country will finish. Like we've seen Ayo Adebanjo say. We're not impressed by that kind of thing. Nigeria is just too much for one individual, no one candidate. So people use concepts like fairness and equity, peace, and justice. You can use equity. If the foundations of equity, you are a student of law. You know what equity is. Equity is founded in what the Constitution says. You have to start from the Constitution. Now, politically, if you want someone to vote for your candidate, you go out and convince people, listen, he doesn't come from where you come from. He comes from where we come from, but he's the best. Look at his qualities. Look at what he has done before. Look at what he would do. That's how you convince people. But you cannot get a candidate elected if all you do is to threaten and to shout and then to go around saying, you must elect him because he's from this language, or he speaks this language, you must elect him because he speaks from... We are not impressed. The most heterogeneous place in Nigeria is the North. We are grown up, we grow up with heterogeneity in our blood.
Doc, let me take you to the umpire in this race. That's another terrain that you're very familiar with. I guess you are an executive secretary?
Secretary.
You're a secretary with INEC at some point. With the preparations so far, are you impressed?
Yes. So far, we think they have done a great job. They need support, they need encouragement, and they need Nigerians to believe in them. And I will tell you why. The only way in which we can be sure we can transit to a new administration in this country, with all the quarrels that you see, is that INEC delivers a credible election where there is no argument over who wins. There are too many people trying to say the only way my candidate will lose is if he's rigged out. Those voices must be drowned. And the only way you drown them is by raising the quality of work that INEC does. And this is why patriotic Nigerians should support them. If you have questions about their technology, their processes, their system, ask them. INEC should answer them. But at this stage, we believe in INEC. We believe what they've done is good. We believe they need more support. And we need, but more importantly, we need those who have responsibility to secure the electoral environment to do so. You must allow Nigerians all over the place, wherever they are.
How would you gauge the level of trust in INEC as an umpire from the people's point of view?
Well, I can only tell you that where I come from and the people we talk to, we haven't found any basis for doubting the credibility or the competence of INEC to compete. to conduct an election. We haven't. In the North, we haven't seen evidence that they will compromise, they're partisan, they are favoring anybody. They've done well. There's been massive improvement in their systems, in their processes. And I believe in the integrity of the leadership of INEC. I believe given the chance, they will deliver a credible election, and Nigerians should support them. Undermining INEC is very dangerous. People who say things like, well, we don't like the Avivas, and you have no basis for that. You're casting doubts on the integrity of INEC and planting the seeds of doubting the outcome of a credible election if they conduct one. That's very dangerous. You must never do this. If you have a basis for saying the election might be rigged, please say, give us the reason. But you hear below the noise of the rallies and the rhetorics of politicians a very worrying thing, where people say things like, the only way a candidate will lose is to be rigged out.
Let's take a breather, Dr. Mohammed, and when we come back, there's so much more to talk about. I'd like to get your view on the CBN Naira swap situation and perhaps the best way we could have handled the situation. We take a break, everyone, and when we come back, my conversation with Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed continues. He is the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed is a spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. He's been speaking with us right now on the 2023 verdict. Thank you so much indeed. There are a lot of people who are undecided with just about 10 days to the election. If there's one thing that Nigerians need to decide or to look to in making that decision of who becomes Nigeria's next president, there are a lot of burden that the next president will have to bear trying to hit the ground running and fixing those problems. What would you say tonight that could help those who have not made up their minds on who to vote for, that could help them make their minds easily tonight?
I would say to them, look for the candidate that hasn't been made an ethnic or a religious property already. That's not what Nigeria needs. I would say look for the candidate that looks like he has the physical and mental capacity to be able to be president of the country. I would say look for someone who shows evidence of being honest, because we need a leader with integrity. But if you're not too sure about all these things, vote for the person that you think understands you as a citizen. What's your problem? What worries you? And from the little that you know, who looks like he understands what the Nigerian citizen today needs? Any citizen, from the southeast to the northwest to wherever. Because it is the citizen that is at the heart of our democratic process. What does the citizen want? He wants security. He wants certainty that he will get a job or a means of living. He wants his child to go to a good school. He wants a future for his child. Who's that leader? But if you don't know who to vote for, then you should know who not to vote for. And who not to vote for is a candidate who's being sold to you because he has his people say you should vote for him and because they like him and you must like him. That's a candidate you should avoid. You should also avoid a candidate that appears to be just wanting to be president because he or she has a lot of money and they're there.
There are a plethora of problems, and it's not going to be an easy job for the next president. What do you think that the next president of Nigeria needs to be looking forward to fixing on the first day on the job?
Good people. Good, solid, knowledgeable, experienced Nigerians who are not going to be ministers and special advisors and his little cycle, people who just want to make money. people with ideas, people with clout, the kind of people who can walk up to him and say, Mr. President, you need to do this. People who know, who understand Nigeria. That's his strength. So the people he picks are going to be his strength. Because most of the front runners now, okay, let's be plain. Buhari, Atiku, and Jonathan and Tinubu are aging. Even at their best, they can't do everything that they want to do. They need excellent set of people around them. Ideas people, go-ahead people, people who know how to fix problems. That's the most important thing. The second thing is find people with integrity. People who will not convert public money into theirs. So they should be good, competent people, people of ideas, and people who have evidence that they fear God and they will not steal money. That's what you're looking for.
I know we are not in short supply of that, but it's just the ability to be able to identify them. But on a final note, this is where I want us to anchor. The central bank policy. The Supreme Court will be sitting tomorrow and looking at there is an existing ex parte order by the Apex Court, and the parties will be appearing before the court tomorrow to listen to the meat of the matter. How did we get here? And perhaps, how best do you think that we can resolve this problem? It does look like there is some political undertone in it.
How did we get here? We got here because President Buhari has messed up all right up to the point where he's going to go. To have allowed this kind of fiasco to exist on the eve of an election when you are actually campaigning to have your own party voted for. This money thing is a major demarketing strategy for the APC. If the worst enemy of APC had designed a strategy for them to lose this election, he couldn't have chosen a better strategy than this fiasco around the reprinting of the
Could
naira.
it be a coincidence?
I don't know. Their own people say it's all contrived to make Tinubu lose. Their own people. The governors who said this is designed to make the candidate lose. The candidate himself says it is designed to make him lose. President Buhari is following him around saying vote for him. At the same time, he's letting where we come from in the northern part of the country, everything that people do that costs less than, say, 5,000 naira. The woman who cooks breakfast, that said she sells to laborers in the morning for 200 naira, 300 naira. People who have to buy food for their families for 1,000, 2,000 naira. This just is money. People are starving. That is the honest truth. Literally in 3 or 4 weeks, you've destroyed the informal sector of the economy in one fell swoop because there's no money, there's no cash. Literally, there's a lot of anger. And to see a situation where the president just either appears unwilling or incapable of reining in MFLA and saying, hey, listen, perhaps we can, there are options. You can allow the old naira and the new naira to coexist for the next 6 months.
That's the advice from the Security Council.
Yeah, but nobody advises. President Buhari apparently doesn't listen to anybody. And MFLA says, I will do what I feel I should do because I've got the president's, the president's got my back. And Nigerians are saying, we really actually know. The governor of CBN is not the guy who is doing all these difficult things to us. It's the president. If the president doesn't want all this suffering and all these things, and considering the other options, the governor of CBN wouldn't get away with the things he's getting away from.
All right. Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed, it's always a pleasure having you around. Thank you so much indeed for coming. Dr. Hakim Baba Ahmed is the spokesperson of the Northern Elders Forum. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
We switch gears now, and let me allow you to listen to the governor of the central bank, Godwin Emefiele, who insists that the February deadline for the Naira swap will remain. He's saying this on the hearing of the Supreme Court ex parte order on this matter, which will happen tomorrow on the 15th of February. Take a listen to the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele.
The CBN is working hard to shift pressure, to shift resources to those areas in order to ease the tension. The situation is substantially calming down since the commencement of the over-the-counter payment to complement ATM disbursement and the use of super agents. There is therefore no need to consider any shift from the deadline of February the 10th.
But as a CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele earlier today, well, let's look at election security next on the menu. And the Federal High Court, we understand, in Abakaliki today disbanded the Southeast security outfit, Abubagu. That court is in Ebonyi State. According to the court and some of the reports coming out of the courtroom, the disbandment of the security outfit was as a result of accusation of human rights abuse, extortions, illegal arrest, and the use of firearms. Joining me on the program next is a security consultant and Channels Television election security consultant, Mr. Dr. Kabiru Adamu. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
How does that come to you, though? The ruling over Abubagu, the Southeast security outfit?
Well, one of the things that we've been monitoring in the last few weeks are rulings by the court that would have an impact on the election. So not surprising, frankly, given recent rulings by the court. And it's something that we've been monitoring because we know last year there was a suit filed by, I think, the PDP, regarding the activities of Abubagu and the possibility that such a ruling would happen before the elections was high.
I mean, so you dissect for us the situation in Ebonyi State, because with the little of the facts that are coming out of the court room on that matter, it does look like there was a specific scenario in that state relating to the security outfit.
So over a period, that particular security outfit has been accused of human rights abuses, not just in Ebonyi State, but in Imo State, and then I think in Enugu State as well. So over time, we've seen instances where the communities have risen against the action of that particular group. Now recall that since the governor changed parties, there have also been concerns regarding the use of non-state apparatus, especially state-level creations. In fact, in one instance, the Inspector General of Police has come out categorically to declare them as illegal. And so any party, as an example, that wants to provide an environment where it can, exercise its, campaign activities freely, would want to have such state apparatus outside. So in the case of Ebonyi State, especially given the position of the state government and the fact that the governor has decamped into another party, the opposition parties seem to be interested in making sure that state-level security structure is not in existence, is not operational during the elections. Unfortunately, that is one key element that we're going into these elections, the existence of this non-state structures, state-level structures that are not recognized by the Constitution. Sadly, apart from this court ruling, there are several other states where these structures exist that may impact the elections.
Isn't this one of the fears of the proponents, those who oppose state policing, the possibility of political interference? Well,
in the case of Ebonyi, that is not what we've seen. Yes, there were human rights abuses, but there were no evidence that those human rights abuses were geared towards obtaining
political gains.
A political gain. Unlike what we're seeing in other places like Lagos, as an example, where other non-state actors, not necessarily now state-level apparatus, are being used to suppress political activities by the opposition. That's not the case in Ebonyi. It was a pure case of human rights abuse. So, in one way, you can call it the excesses of state structures, such as the one in Ebonyi, as an example.
Let's look at it more critically. The establishment or the ideas of regional security outfit like Ebubeagu, like we're seeing in the southwest region of the country, where there is a security outfit agreed upon by the governors in the region, hoping that this will help them to drill down into the communities to fight crimes and criminality. If you look at the Ebubeagu, the Southeast network that the governors also have agreed on, basically a self-help mechanism by the governors in fighting those instances of violence and criminality. Give us an idea of what could be the implication of this court ruling.
Let's start from looking at the national security architecture. In summary, there are gaps that exist within the national security architecture. So the farther you go from the city centers, the more you see these gaps. The presence of security forces are extremely thin in our rural communities. Now, because they're extremely thin, non-state actors and other threat elements take advantage of these gaps and perpetrate the kind of insecurity challenges that we have within the country. Now, most communities, states, communities have evolved structures to block those gaps. Now, in the case of the Southeast, the governors came together and agreed to replicate what the Southwest did. And so Ebubeagu was brought it. And in most of them, there were legislative pronouncements at the state level by the state assemblies in those states that back the creations of this level. So now that the court has ruled, even though it's not my 440, it's not I'm not a lawyer, but it creates a challenge. Now there is a state legislation that has created this movement, and if the court has ruled that they're banned or they're illegal. However, the reason for their creation has not been taken care of. But the good news, I think, for us as Nigerians is that almost all, at least the 4 major candidates that are heading into the elections on February 25th, all are in one way or the other supporting the creation of state police. So even though this is different in terms of the fact that these are legislations at the state level, it may not mean the same thing as state police. But going forward, it means that post-February 2025, and when the new government will be sworn in May, we may see a Nigeria that would have some level of state policing, maybe different from this. But for now, suffice to say that this ruling has created a gap that the state attempted to block as a result of these vulnerabilities that exist within the national architecture.
Now, so there is, and I asked about the implication, to further that question is the larger implication on the election. Elections are just few weeks away, or a few days away, just about 10, 11 days away. So does that have any direct correlation or impact? Could it have any impact on the election?
Definitely. There is a conspiracy theory going around in the Southeast, the so-called unknown gunmen. The conspiracy theory ties the activities of the unknown gunmen as a creation of the federal structure. Now, the security ecospace is being occupied by these 2 levels. The federal level, which has, as you know, about 27 different security departments. Now, the state level has come up with another structure to occupy spaces that are not being occupied by these several structures. Now, a court has removed that state level. Now, the conspiracy theory is going to expand to the extent that the removal of that state level structure now allows the federal structure to continue the agenda within this conspiracy theory. And that's how we're going into the elections. Don't forget the permutations, and I'm sure you are a better authority than me in that regard. The permutation regarding 25% in each of the states. The more the space is open, the more those type of discussions would occur. So this would have significant consequences. What is unclear is whether that court ruling affects only Ebonyi State or it extends to the other state within the Southeast region, the 4 other states. I haven't seen the full details of the court
we've
ruling.
not been able to extract, because that judgment, just a little information is coming out of the courtroom on that the ruling of the court, and we've not been able to extract as much information, and one we need those information to be able to sit on the fact of the matter. But preliminary facts coming shows that the court ruled that there was a disbandment of the security outfit, and part of the reasons was issues of right abuses. Now, and I would like to know, looking into the 2023 elections, which is just a few days away, we saw yesterday what President Buhari did with the IG of police, new equipment, although that was supposed to be a police civil community kind of gadgets to in case of any civil unrest and all of that. But generally, you know, we had discussion about the Nigerian landscape and the security architecture ahead of the election. Would you say that the Nigerian police force is ready for this election from what you can see?
As the lead agency in charge of internal security within the country, I would say it has done a lot to prepare itself for election security management. It is a critical member of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, and as far back as early 2022, it started with several preparations. It held a retreat, a seminar, I think it was in Imo State, if I remember well, in Owerri. Before that, it held several regional seminars and retreats where it brought together its senior management to come up with what it called its STA, Security Threat Assessment, for the different locations. So to that extent, one would say the police is prepared. But the police is just one element within the eco space for election.
But they are the lead in the
management. Yeah. They are the lead, but the role they play, despite the fact that that role is critical, it is not the only role. Point I'm trying to make is every security agency, department within the government plays a role in election security management. And I'll give you an example. The immigration as an example. If the borders are not well manned, and illegal, what we call aliens, an example, come into the country and perpetrate some acts of criminality, no matter how good the police is, that effort would be made futile. The second component is the military, as an example. So I would rather discuss the role of all the security departments, especially within this platform of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, and then the role of INEC as the facilitator of this excess. I think that way we would have a better approach that would be able to manage the risk, because let's not forget that this risk, they are manifest and they are dynamic, they are transient. What was risk yesterday may not be risk today. So discussing the police isolated from excess, I think would not really help election security management. So yes, they are prepared, but more importantly, I would like to see a holistic election security management plan that takes into the consideration the role of each and every member of excess, so that all of this risk, at the last time we counted the risk, we counted almost about 79 of such risk.
Wow.
And for you to treat each of this risk, it would take more than the police. It would require a whole of government approach. And sadly, just 10 days before the elections, I haven't seen that election security management plan coming out of excess. I'm hoping that it's there. It's just that they've not made it public, because in their mandate, when I went through their mandate, there is a part of the mandate that required them to create such an STA that would have 3 levels of risk: the high level, the medium level, and the low level. Unfortunately, I haven't seen that. I'm hoping it exists, it's just that I haven't seen it.
I know that recently you released the Beacon Intel Security Report. That was for the last quarter of 2022. And looking at that report, I read carefully, showed we could glean a few things ahead of the election that can help us ahead of the election. A few issues on the kind of violent and insecurity situation that we have had around the country in that quarter. Give us a sense of what you found out in that quarter that will be of help for our viewers tonight in summary of the situation across the country in that report.
So what we did was we collect data of different security events. Then we analyze that data, and then out of it we produce that report. That report actually contained the last quarter, and then for the whole year 2022. So just to give you a sense, 11,000 Nigerians were killed in 2022. And for the
Say that again.
11,000 Nigerians were killed in 2022. Sadly, the fatality figure for the number of persons that were killed was around 11,000.
So this included northeast insurgency, banditry,
the whole of the country,
the whole of the country,
exactly.
And court clashes and any kind
exactly. The only thing,
so this is relating to crime, violence,
security incidents, not safety incidents.
Okay,
so
okay. Not fire,
dead from fire,
yeah.
from flood, from accidents, road travel accidents, and things like that. Now, the interesting thing is the dimension of and the distribution of these figures. Rather, about 80% of these 11,000 happened in the northern part of the country. So if you break it down again, Zamfara State, Katsina State, and Borno State, as well as Kaduna, had the highest figures if you go state by state level. And one thing that was common in all of these states is the activities of non-state armed groups. Now,
was he on the increase?
Yes, it was on the increase, sadly. And that is what worried us. We are going into an elections where we're seeing non-state armed groups challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state, and almost with a wanton abandon. Now, sadly, the speed with which these non-state armed groups were spreading within the country ahead of the elections was also worrisome. And in summary, what came out clearly is that whatever measures we were implementing to limit the abilities of these non-state actors to perpetrate these acts, unfortunately, was not as successful as we would have wanted it to be. To put it in context, over a period of 1 year, these groups have spread beyond where they were at the beginning of the year, as an example.
Why? I mean, and I'm asking why, because as if you know the coordination of this event, but I'm just bothered. That's why I raised the question, why? If you could put any reason to, there was an increase in abduction and fatality rate in Q4. We had abduction rate of 1,640 incidents with fatalities of 2,700, higher than Q3. Why? Is there any reason behind it?
Politics, sadly.
Oh.
And then the
campaign started around.
Campaign started. Then sadly, to the effects of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which affected commodities, and then of course the inflation that we saw, all of that exacerbated the insecurity, the drivers of insecurity within the country. Don't forget that the multidimensional poverty index that was released indicated about 133 million Nigerians were within that poverty cycle. So that means all these threat elements that we're discussing would find it easy to recruit from within this 133 million persons. So the triggers include issues around socio-economic conditions of the people, climate change, and then several other components, sadly. One thing that is also, I think, important to mention is the approach by the federal government. The approach is mainly military, so kinetic force is the main approach that we've been seeing. And sadly, this type of insecurity challenges require a little bit more than kinetic force.
We're due for a break, though. But looking at the figures and the map that that came out of your report, the northwest region of the country has a major problem of abductions. Zamfara having the biggest numbers, 277 in 1 year, followed by Sokoto 154, and Kaduna coming third, 111, Katsina 57, FCT 24, and you go to Ondo with 10, Kebbi 10, Anambra 8, Cross River 5, Plateau 5, Benue 5. That is a progression of that of the figures. But we'll take a break now. But when we return, I'd like you to give us a sense of what we need to do ahead of the election, which is just 10 or 11 days away. If any of the authorities within the security circle are watching tonight, what we should focus our attention on, which of these states are the hotbeds of possible violence, and based on your threat analysis that you have done, so that Nigerians can be able to have an education on around how to protect themselves and how to stay safe. Stay with me, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. We'll be right back after this commercial break, everyone. Thank you so much. Dr. Kabiru Adamu is the Executive Director of Beacon Intel Company, a security outfit. He's also Channels Television Election Security Consultant. Thank you so much indeed, Doc, for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
At least about nothing less than 10 military operations that we've seen across the country. Operation Aiding Kai, Operation Enduring Peace, Operation Adering Daji, Operation Thunderstrike, Operation White Stroke, Operation White Punch, Operation Mesa, Operation Flush Out, Operation Delta Save, Operation Golden Dawn, Operation Awase. Across the country, the military have their hands full. Give us a sense of your mapping of the hotbeds ahead of this election.
So we use a criteria, including, for instance, court rulings, how contentious were the court ruling in a particular state. I'll give an example, Yobe State, with the recent court ruling. And then we also use the incumbency factor. Is the particular election in question, is the incumbent going to run again, or has his term expired? He's not going to run. Every time the incumbent is not running, the space is open and you see more contestants. But the most important factor is the existence of non-state armed groups. We give a value higher than the other criteria. So on the basis of that, places like Borno, where the non-state armed groups are active, Kaduna, Niger State, to an extent Taraba, have featured prominently in terms of the states with high threat levels. Zamfara State, if I didn't mention Zamfara, Katsina is also featuring high. The other one is the incorporation of non-state individuals or groups into this state apparatus of security. So as an example, where you have youth gangs, or unionized transport workers. That's the case of most of the states in the southwest, where an association such as the National Union of Route Transport Workers have been incorporated into the security structure of some of the political parties in those locations. Now, in the past, we know that these groups have used weapons to exercise certain influence, and we are likely to see that. So some states in the southwest are featuring prominently in terms of high threat levels. Lagos is one of them.
Yeah. Have you seen the recent violence that we've seen? Lagos, Rivers.
Rivers State is featuring prominently as a state that is likely to feature in terms of both during election and post-election violence. So in other words, we use the criteria. The difference between our threat assessment and the one that I've seen published is that ours is parallel. Ours is not static. Threat and risk are transient. And so we have a collection capability that allows us to constantly update our risk level. As an example, when the court ruling came out in Yobe, we immediately changed our risk levels. So each of these criteria that I've mentioned to you have values. And
it's dynamic too, so
exactly.
As things unfold. Just about two more questions so that we can wrap up. And I like, most importantly, because on this program, I'm very much concerned about my viewers. A lot of them who are politically savvy and are politically they're interested in politics, and so they'll be going out on election day. And I will seek your kind indulgence for a free security advice for them. You've mentioned a few states that we need to look out for. apart from asking what government should be doing, is also what citizens should be doing. If you're advising them, what can they look out for? What should they be looking out for on election day? Where should they be in that regard?
So time would not allow me to go into the full details of security management at the individual corporate level and then of course at the national level. But the good thing is just 3 days ago we conducted a webinar, and that was the topic of that webinar. Now the recording of that webinar is on our website and our social media platform. So anyone listening should go there. I wasn't the only one. I was there with Tanwa Ashiru, with Samson Itodo, and with Hamza Lawal of Connected Development. So a lot of information regarding the elections and security management. But some of the tips that I can give, number one is to download an app called Citizens 8. It's an app that helps citizens to manage security concerns. Number two is what we call the mantra of security. It has 3 components. Be aware, and then once you're aware, anticipate. And then once you anticipate, you take mitigation measures. So what do these 3 things mean? In other words, keep yourself informed. Do not assume, for instance, that you are in an environment where there are no risks. There is no part of Nigeria. The 774 local governments of Nigeria each have component risks in them. So you need to be aware of that. Yeah. This platform will not allow me to go into
absolutely, because there's one very important question, is a recommendation. You've given this report, and we have on our hands a very, very critical election. What are your recommendations?
Number one recommendation goes to INEC. INEC has the platform called Access, like I mentioned. We haven't seen enough of that platform being active at the state and local government level. When that ad hoc committee was set up, it was envisioned to be active at both the federal, the state, and local government level. I know that last year the Inspector General of Police, Alkali Baba, issued a circular, a public circular, directing all the commissioners of police at the state level to activate that platform. Now, what that platform would do, it's meant to be a meeting point for different persons within the community. All of these threat elements that we're discussing, they are not ghosts. They exist within us. So when you activate such a platform, you are able to gather information on who is doing what, why are they doing it, and then hopefully you put in place mitigation measures so that you are able to reduce the tension within the country. So that's the number one recommendation. Number two, I mentioned it earlier on, we need to see that election management plan. In the 2019 elections, the voter turnout was 34%. We need to raise the confidence of the voters. And one of the best ways to do that is to show Nigerians what mechanism is in place to manage these insecurity challenges, and that mechanism is an election risk management plan. So I'm hoping that the Office of the National Security Advisor, that is the co-chair of this ICSES, would bring out such an election risk management plan and show to Nigerians that these are the measures that would be put in place to mitigate the risk that we currently have in the country. Number three is all stakeholders, civil society organizations as an example. I think we need to demand, especially from INEC, what are the key performance indicators, the terms of reference of the members of ICSES. Why, as an example, do we have EFCC? Why do we have ICPC within ICSES? I know the answer as an example, but how am I going to hold them to account? Their terms of reference, their key performance indicators, so that as a journalist, when you are doing election reporting, you are able to say, when you see vote buying, which agency, which organization. And then lastly, I think each and every one of us need to hold everyone involved in the electoral process, because I realize that INEC is not the only one involved. 1,500 Nigerians are going to serve as staff to INEC, some of them ad hoc, others are permanent staff. So we need to hold them to account. If you know that, for instance, any one of these 1,500 is partisan, this is the time for you to speak.
To speak up.
Yeah, you shouldn't wait. And we know these things. All of us have a level of responsibility beyond what INEC, as an example, and the security organizations would do.
Valuable contributions that you have made on this program tonight. Dr. Kabiru Adamu, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time tonight. Well, it's Valentine's Day. I don't know what you want to do with your evening, but I hope that you enjoy it with your loved ones. Thank you so much indeed. Yes, I try. I try my best. Thank you so much indeed. Dr. Kabir Adamu, Channels Television's election security consultant and the executive director of Beacon Consulting. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you.
But that's our show for tonight, everyone. It's Valentine's Day, but that's how we wrap it up on tonight's edition of the 2023 Verdict on Channels Television. I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow again at 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.